I am back from the dead and back with another video for you guys. There was a lot covered last week, particularly in the podcast, and that is going to be the focus of today's video. I'll touch briefly at the beginning on what was shown in Tuesdays, but the point of this is to talk about co-op bosses and how I think they should work. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone, Rachel here, back with another Godforge video. And today's video, not sure how long it's going to be, but it is one that I've actually put a lot of thought into. I don't generally think about much, because I think that if this sort of co-op boss mode is to come into a game like this, there needs to be some serious considerations sort of shown or thought about, which weren't initially sort of in the podcast, I believe. Now, that does not mean that they are not going on behind the scenes. It does not mean that some things were edited out in that podcast video. But I know that it was potentially a bone of contention with some people. So I'm going to throw my hat in the ring as well, because as I say, there are some things that need to be thought about. Now, this does not mean it's a negative video at all, and I'm not shitting on anyone either. I actually think it's a really fun topic. But firstly, in sort of like a little news wrap-up fashion, what did we see on Tuesday? Tuesday was predominantly focused on the Tower of Strife and Async Arena PvP for the MVP or Early Access coming next year. Lots of cool stuff on the Tower of Strife front. We know, obviously, that there are 2 different towers. You're going to be locked into those for 45 days, Simon said in that. So you're going to pick mainly on, especially the first one, what your early pools are. If you've got a lot of Chaos Heroes, you'll go into Order, and vice versa. There's also going to look like a cool summon banner at the end. Now, I would put money on that it's not guaranteed to get one of those units at the end there. They'll just have an increased chance. How I feel about that, how you feel about that, who knows? Personally, not the massive fan, especially as I bet it's not a guaranteed chance to get a Lego from whatever this unit of currency is going to be. So you're going to have to save up. How many do you get in a 45-day period, etc., etc. So lots to think about in there, but it was still a good video. And then from the PvP side of things, whilst it's nothing new compared to what you've seen in Arena, the interesting part was there was a lot of new character models shown that we've not seen before. Some ultimates, get an idea what they're going to do as well. So that was really cool, so you should definitely go check that out. But today's focus is on the podcast, and I'm just going to clip a little bit for the main topic of this video right here.
Yeah, and what do you think then about teaming up with somebody else to let's say we drop a world boss, and the expectation is to really do well against this fight, you need 3 of you going in and having some sort of synergy in terms of the way you play. You could go in just with a couple of randos and hope they're not brain dead, but ultimately you're going to do better if you go in with people and you could jump on comms or whatever you want to do, but ultimately, like, you go in there with an idea of I'm going to fulfill a role.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that in this type of game, in a mobile game, that type of content? Imagine then we use world boss as a thing, so it's not going to be for our like MVP early access build, but we are going to be dropping either like a co-op boss mode or a world boss mode, or the 2 of them together. But the idea is, the idea at the moment is there will be some sort of co-op gameplay to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess
he's so close. He's like trying not to leak. I can just see it all over his face. He's just like,
but we're working through mechanics with it, right? Because if it was, I'm just going to go in there with my squad and you're going in with your squad, it still feels very solo gameplay.
Like Etheria, right? They tried it with the co-op triple
their one was
dragon.
like literally we're just watching a boss fight.
It
wasn't
was
playing the game.
Yeah,
and we definitely want it to feel like if I am in the zone and working with people that understand how to try and get something out of this fight, then let's say my the sort of vibe we're going for is our heroes are actually on auto, so we're not controlling skill by skill what they're doing. We can control heroes that come in, but then I almost have like a couple of godlike functions as a role. So I might be the support, and I can choose from almost like imagine a mastery tree of support type options. So it could be okay, I'm going to enhance shields by 200%, and it's on a cooldown. So you have to pick the right times to be able to play your abilities, but you might be able to synergize your ability with an offensive ability from someone else. That when I've got enhanced shields, I do 4 times the damage or whatever it is. Like basically an idea of if we really work together, we could blitz through the enraged moment, or we can protect our team versus this kind of like colossal amounts of damage. If we don't really synergize together, then we'll get some work done, but ultimately you're probably going to fail. Or if you don't pick the right abilities that work together, then so I
think
guess
it's the challenge of cooperative, because it's a mobile game. Even though we're not an AFK game, you still got to try and communicate in a mobile environment when I got 30 minutes on a train or something like that. And if you really want a true cooperative, and this is my feat, this is when I looked at Theory Restart, I kind of looked at that system. We were talking a lot about co-op systems at the time. I was like, oh, cool, Theory Restart, I've got a co-op. And I looked and I was like, it's not really cooperative. It's you pick the team, I pick the team, and I put some of my heroes on the other team, and that's it. Like, I don't control it. My choices don't affect you. And for me, for a true cooperative experience, it should be, okay, Simon is picking Hercules on his team. Now I'm making decisions based on that team. We put a team together, then the battle is making us choose. It's making us work together. I can empower your Hercules. It might come at a cost at my team, but you're gonna take the front. I've got really good support healers. I'm gonna keep you alive so that you can be the leader of this team. That's cooperative. And it's the balance of, if you go too far and it's too complex for a player to understand the choices, or there's not enough communication streams. It's like, that's what we're trying to balance at the moment. I want that experience in the game, that what Simon picks is something that I will then pick as a choice, and then the game throws me choices that I have to choose with that person for the best outcome for us. And that's when you get a lot of fun. But you can also create a lot of problems of, to your point, YSC, like, what if that person doesn't talk to me?
Right, so just going to bring my beautiful self back in here. So there was a lot spoken about there. They start to go on to a little bit about what happens if someone goes offline, that kind of stuff. How I would do it, as the thumbnail and the title says, this is how I would go about it. And we're going to start in Dragonair. So here you are, join me on my Dragonair account. So the first thing that I just want to talk about, and if I'm looking over here, it's because I'm sort of referring back to some notes that I made earlier, is it's important to remember the genre of game that we are playing. We are playing a gacha game, a hero collector RPG, not an MMO. Now, a lot of us play these sorts of games because, as Simon has mentioned before, a lot of the player base are perhaps ex-World of Warcraft players, Guild Wars, that kind of thing, who do not have the time to do that anymore, which is why we play the kind of games that we see now. So whilst it's fun to bring elements of an MMO into it, ultimately people who play these games are older ladies and gents with busy lives and less time. I love co-op modes. I really do. And the idea of this is super cool. And I'm all for it. But it's got to be done right. The entire thing, I believe, shouldn't take longer than 5 to 10 minutes, even if it means hitting it over like a couple of days to complete it. So let's say it is a world boss of some description, and that 10-minute fight only does 10% of the HP or what have you, and then I've got to do it over 10 days, fine. I'd rather that than having to spend an hour and a half to kill the entire thing. Whilst I'm in the unique position that I've only got to look after myself, not everyone is in that position. So I think it's important to remember who the player base is and not try and force this thing into it. So, with that being said, I want to sort of talk about the ability to be able to complete it solo. Now, in Dragonair, you have this Berengar fight right here. And as you can see, you have solo challenge, and team challenge. So this is one of the things that I immediately thought of when I was sort of discussing this, as well as the Etheria restart version. But with Dragonair, you can do this fight as a solo player. But if you do it as a team member, you get increased rewards. As you can see, it says reward bonus. It won't actually show me because I've already done it for this week. But you get the idea. Team Jazz are rewarded with the bonus. And I think that's something to consider, especially with whatever the reward's going to be. And I'm going to talk about what I think that rewards should be as well. Just something to bear in mind. Now, I'm actually going to skip a couple of points on my little sheet because it's relevant to Dragonair, and I've got a couple of other games that I'm going to open up and bring into play here. So I'm going to skip a couple of things here and focusing a little bit more on the solo play side of things first. So I'll talk about a sort of a rewards-based system in a bit, but I believe it could work if it was similar to what Dragonair do with their sort of speed runs. Now, where is what I'm looking for? Now, something that is done every sort of other week in Dragonair is they do these dungeon speed runs, okay? Now, if we look at the rewards, you've got like 5 or 6 different rewards here, all right. The top player will get 10,000 of this currency, and then for 7 days they get this cool little title. Second place gets slightly less, third place gets slightly less, fourth, fifth, 6 to 10, etc. You get the idea. And then every week, I'll say every week, at least the first few weeks of the season, you have to fight again for your title, to keep the title. I think this is potentially a really cool way of doing it, especially with rewards as well. So the rewards could be, I said I was going to talk about it later, we're doing it now. Could be something like, the way I'm envisioning it is kind of like fragments in Raid, okay? Embrace fragments, for example, linked to Chimera chests. In that the top could get 20 fragments. Now, Simon said it was going to be some sort of premium currency, so it could be 20 of whatever this premium currency is. You could then get 18 down here, 16, 14, 12, 10, and then, you scale it however one you want. You could then go 30 to 50 is 5, 50 plus 2, and then 100 plus 1, something like that. So you're not punishing people if when it drops, an inconvenient time for them that they're missing out entirely, because it is a gradual reward. Even if you were to finish last in everything all the time, you would eventually still get there, or you would get enough of this currency to buy whatever you want in this shop to do what you want, that kind of thing. Then for obviously the guys that push quite hard or do it quite quickly, they get the top rewards, they get it sooner, happy days. They also get like their cosmetic title, that kind of thing for it. That is one way of doing it, I believe, if it's a sort of first time kill method ethos for this co-op world boss. Okay, I think that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is similar to sort of like a clan bossy styley, where again, if you hit the top rank, so rather than fastest clear, it might be like a clan boss where highest damage done in that window. Again, you get the top prize plus all the other bits. And then so on and so forth. It will scale down again depending on the amount of damage you do. So rather than killing it, you're spreading it out over a period of time, making it more like an event kind of thing. And then each day of the event could drop a new thing. So day one of the event, let's act it out. Let's say Surtur, Ragnarok has come, Surtur has left the realm of Nilfheim, and he is attacking Asgard. Because he's attacking Asgard, the Asgards are the first units to see it. So on that particular day, day one, Asgard units do 10% extra damage. And this is good because it links into sort of Simon and Paul's points of sort of they want choices to be meaningful, where if you are doing it co-op, having some good synergy and talk and structure to the team that you're putting together is going to have a bigger impact than you just jumping in with a few randos. So that is sort of another way you can do it if you're structuring it out of an event. And then day two, the Olympians managed to get word of what was happening, or maybe Surtur has wrecked Asgard and now he's moving on Mount Olympus. That kind of thing. Destiny has ordered that, the Order heroes to go deal with the threat. You can then structure it that way as well. There's a few ways you can go about it. They've probably already thought about this, but this was just sort of my 2 cents, if you will. Now, solo play, again, because we're in Dragonet. Because of the type of game that it is, I think it's important to be able to do it solo. However, it is a co-op mode. So how I would do it is I would either do it like they did in Etheria Restart for their Pantheon boss, and that other games have done, in that you can nominate one hero, perhaps of every class, and you can submit it into your profile, kind of like what we do here on Dragonair. Okay, if we come to my profile right here, you can submit heroes like we see here, and then let's say Billy over here, can come along and go, oh, I'm really missing this. Ragewood happens to have a really good healer here who's +4 awakened. I'm going to use his healer. I've got a damage dealer here, and then let's say, for argument's sake, let's drop this one and put in my 5 awakened tank. So those are there for people or solo players to use and call upon to fit whatever needs that they have. Someone might have loads of really good damage dealers, they could put them all here, could put 5 supports in there, whatever the number is, you have it there so people can have the option to take from them if you are in a solo play environment. However, because they are doing it solo, they only get half the rewards, whatever it is. Okay. Now, I know that seems harsh because you are punishing them with only half of the reward, but I also think this is a co-op boss mode, and you want to encourage that team play, and therefore if you are doing it solo, you are going to be punished somewhat. Another way that you can do it is similar to the power-ups that Simon spoke about, whatever those power-ups are. If you are playing solo, you just don't get access to them. You still get the regular awards, but you don't get access to them. So it makes it harder, essentially. I think that's another way you could go about it. I'm not trying to punish people intentionally here, but again, it's in the title, it's a co-op boss mode. And if it's not forced upon you, like, let's say it's fragments, for example, if you want the fragments, you can go get them. You don't know it's not part of your core loop, your daily thing. It's only like a once every 45, maybe it's similar to the Tower of Strife. Maybe it's once every 45 days that this event happens. I don't see it being an issue in doing that. And if you are also, very introverted, you don't have many friends, and the ones that you do have are on the opposite side of the globe to you, you can still do the event. It might be trickier, you might get a little bit less rewards, but you're not missing out entirely. So you are still catering to them in that front. At least that is one way I would tackle it to begin with. So we've spoken a little bit about reward structure. We've spoken a little bit how you can make it so it is viable for solo players in the event that you're on a holiday, you're sick, you're rushing around, whatever, you can't quite get all the time together to organize, you're not missing out. That is the first thing that I wanted to speak about and sort of bring up. Right. So now let's jump into, let's say we are doing it in a co-op environment. We're going to start going back up to my list. Hold on. Some of the other questions and problems we're sort of looking to solve. So at the start of the Thursday podcast, Simon was speaking about his interest in not forecasting everything. Some of the community want everything forecasted so they can plan ahead, especially if they are non-spenders. They can save their resources for it, blah, blah, blah. Simon's keen to have some stuff as a surprise, and I have to say I fall in that camp as well. It can be boring if everything is forecasted ahead of time, because you might just be playing wait, blah, blah, blah. And, people do it because of FOMO. I don't think there's any need for that, especially if it's done right. So I'm keen to have it not forecasted ahead of time. However, if they do just drop it on a dime, players must have ample time to complete it, and it must suit all time zones. So, in my opinion, if it's a smaller event, whatever, it sounds bad. I think 12 hours needs to be the minimum time to complete sort of smaller tasks. Because people sleep for 8. I say people sleep for 8. Some of you are probably watching this going, I wish I got 8 hours sleep. But okay, let's go off the grounds that you should probably have 8 hours sleep. So giving it a 12-hour window, if it drops right as someone's going to sleep, they're not wrecking their own health to be able to do this. They can sleep, they can get up a little bit earlier, crack on with it in the morning. And if they get cracking on with it early in the morning, for example, they can run it solo, kind of what we've said earlier, and still be able to get it done if their friends are not around. Alternatively, they can do it in the evening, they can plan ahead, they can call their buddies, whoever it is, and say, right, we've got 12 hours, I'll be home in 7, Mikey's going to be home in 8, and Billy's going to be home in 4, so if we do it at X amount of time, we can still do it then. Happy days. That, I think, should be the minimum for, something, if it's a daily thing, a very small daily thing. The other thing is, if it is a harder task, like a world boss, it's going to take a long time to do. The other way you could go about it is doing it over a weekend, kind of what they've suggested, giving people 48 to 96 hours to complete the task. Again, I think doing it either of those ways, you're going to keep the player base happy enough that it didn't matter that it wasn't forecasted ahead of time. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is you could perhaps say, let's go back to Serta, Ragnarok will occur during the next fortnight. Or so you're giving them a bit of forecast, but not tons. Okay, so again, you're sort of keeping both mediums there. And if you are, still be vague. That's the way I look at it, sort of thing. Don't say on the 31st of June, this is going to happen. No, just say, look, some point in the next week or the next fortnight, this is going to happen. You can even have telltale signs in games, like you could say rumblings are heard over in Asgard. Players beware. There's like a message in their inbox. So you're not telling people exactly what it is. Heck, no one knows, but something's coming. And then, maybe in 3 days after that, it's like players get another message. The rumblings that were being heard are louder now. So you're like, okay, things are getting a lot closer. And then the event actually drops. That's, one way that you could do it as well without actually announcing it to players. This is what's happened. We've talked about timings and announcements. Over to the co-op itself. Who remembers this? Right. Shout out to my friend Pooper Noodle, or Nuda Poople because the other one was taken for getting me this screenshot. World of Warcraft. The events dropped, whatever it is has happened. We're encouraging co-op gameplay. How do you deal with having both randoms and, people you know? Now, this is part of the way I think you deal with randoms. You have a World of Warcraft matchmaking queue roll style thing that we can see here. You can select your class. So let's say, in our instance, we've got Defender, Brawler, Invoker, blah, blah, blah. You can submit 3, you can submit 5, whatever number it is. You just pick the role that you are willing to play or provide for the team. Because I think Simon said it would be on auto. So you just pick your best units, essentially, here, okay? When you are selected and you got that thing saying, you've been selected, this is your damage roll, and you got that da-da-da sound, at that point, it would lock in your selection to only be able to select those units. That prevents trolls. Or at least is a step towards it. You could still just bring a defender that's ungeared and just wreck everyone. But if you key it or put it behind keys, for example, people are less likely to sort of throw them away. Now, some people go, "Oh, no, it shouldn't be keyed," but I think having keys and having this sort of method would encourage you to actually play it, even if you don't get selected for the role that you would want normally. Okay, so I think this is a good way of doing it. And then let's say it's a 3-man event. You're going to need a squad of 5. At that point, you can select a tertiary role. Let's secondary or tertiary, even whatever the number is. And then again, it will tell you which ones to bring with you. The person who doesn't get the second hero in, I don't think it matters per se. Let's say it's a 3-man event. 2 people bring 2. 1 person brings 1. And maybe the person who brings 1 is the one using the powers or something like that. Maybe it's an extra power. Who knows? But yeah, this is, I think, one way of going about it. Now, once you've done this and you're in the pick screen, then I think you need to be doing something similar to what games like Heroes of the Storm, League of Legends have done during their ranked mode gameplays. And now we're going to flip over to that so I can show you what I mean. So here I am in Heroes of the Storm, and it's a similar sort of vibe to where I'm angling at with the co-op mode here. Now, I am going to be playing with random, so it's a nice sort of way to look at it. Now, down here, I've said that I'm happy to play the tank role as my first role here, and then a ranged assassin as a second role. So I'm going to wait for it to find a queue, but this could be exactly the same as this world boss event's playing with randoms. Or Dragonair, you can share an invite link into the chat. People can then join you for the Berengar fight that we sort of looked at earlier. Say all you do a queue like this. But I'm going to pause this here until we actually find the game, just to save a bit of time. So here we are. We've found a game. Okay, so as you can see, I'm happy to play a tank. So what I'm going to do to help my team out, I'm going to highlight the tank that I want to play. And you can do the same thing in this Godforge co-op burst mode, especially if this said, like, Olympians do X amount more damage up the top here. Then, I can think, oh, I'm going to pick, I don't know, think of an Olympus tank. I can't think of anyone right now. But you get the idea. You could have Zeus here. Someone else could pick something else here, and it will just help you synergize. So it allows randomers to be able to sort of work together without necessarily needing the voice comms. And then if you are in voice comms, happy days, you're just going to make a better team between the group of you. That's how I envisaged this sort of making choices meaningful and bouncing off what your friends want to do in this mode. That's how I am missing it. I'm going to lock my pick in first. I got a great skin. And yeah, this is how I think we could do it, obviously minus all of the bans and all of that kind of stuff, because that's not going to exist. But at least this side of it, I think could work and could be a direction to push this in. Anyway, I'm going to have to play this game now to not ruin my MMO and everyone else's. So we will join back at the end once this is done. Now, you're just going to have to believe me when I say that that went incredibly well and we definitely won it. And no one has any evidence to prove otherwise. So, yes, that is kind of it for the video. We'll find out how long it is when I clip it all together, to be fair. But in sort of summary, just going to recap a few thoughts that I had. So, again, remember that it is a gacha, not an MMO. So I don't think it should take longer than sort of 5 to 10 minutes for the boss fight itself, per se. Okay, that's not including any potential queuing, matchmaking, organization beforehand. Just the physical, fight itself. Should it be forecasted ahead of time? I am in the no camp. However, it should be completable in a manageable time without negatively affecting people's health, that kind of thing, just to bear in mind. I think that, doing a sort of queue, sort of role queue thing like World of Warcraft, it is a good way of organizing roles with randoms. Or if you are just playing on your phone, you don't necessarily have voice comms, and then locking those picks in depending on what is selected for you. I think it could also, or should also, be completed as a solo. However, if you are going to do that, the rewards should be reflective of that. It is a co-op mode. You can do it solo. However, I think you should be penalized in a way for running it solo. If you are doing it solo, you could perhaps click people from a Pantheon member or friends profile to bring into your team. I think you should be bringing at least one from somewhere else if you are playing solo. From a rewards standpoint, I think that it should be done, if it's a premium currency, I still think regardless of where you finish, you should get something. So then there is no FOMO, or if you are playing solo, what have you, you're still going to get the reward or the currency to buy the reward. It will just take you longer. You can do it like the Dragonair sort of speedrun tournament. First place, if it's a kill first thing where first place gets X amount plus some titles and some cool shit, and then it filters down from there. If you're doing it like a Chimera chest, again, you can just give more rewards or a better chest to the top players, and then slightly worse chests for the ones who were not as good. That is it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I will hopefully have more regularity and weekly videos coming out soon. Now I'm healthy. And yeah, take care, look after yourselves, work hard, but as always, play harder. I'll see you in another one soon. Cheers.